Hi everyone, Bill Duvendack here with the monthly astrological preview video of January 2025. So grab your cup, get cozy, and let's talk about how the new calendar year starts, shall we? So, the first thing to know is that January 2025 begins with 4 planets retrograde at the beginning. The North Node of the Moon, which is retrograde 90% of the year, Uranus. When it goes retrograde, it's retrograde for months. Jupiter, same. And Mars. Now, the reason I want to start off with this is because Mars only retrogrades every couple of years. It has been about 80 years or so since Mars has been retrograde in Leo. So, I talked about this in the December video, so if you need a refresher, go check it out on the YouTube channel. But I point this out because what it tells us is beginning January 2025, it's a good time for internal review that has to do with where your energy is going and why. Where are you expelling energy? Where are you collecting energy? Is the direction that your energy being sent what's best for you and everyone involved in your life? Or are you just spinning your wheels? This reminds me of the universal law of diminished return, which says that for most situations in life, you reach a point where you're putting more energy into something than you are getting out of it. And when that time comes, it's time to cut your losses and leave. Now, there are exceptions to this, parenting being the best example that I can think of. But I point this out because many times success or failure is not determined by significant willpower, but rather, as Charles Darwin said, adaptation. So with the start of January, let's focus on transformation and adaptation. This is emphasized by the fact that on the 1st, we have the moon conjunct Pluto in Aquarius and an Aquarius stellium. Moon conjunct Pluto means it's a good time to go deep to your core and see what needs to be changed. It also tells us your temper might be shorter than normal. So considering events of the last few months, this completely makes sense. The Aquarius stellium that is present also reminds us of a subtlety of Aquarius that surprisingly I don't see people talk about a lot, and that is rebellion. For the last several years, and even more so last year, with Pluto moving into Aquarius, a lot of people were looking at the humanitarian aspects of Aquarius, the enlightened thinker side of Aquarius, the innovative side of Aquarius. But an important note of Aquarius energy that should not be skipped is rebellion. Straight up rebellion, revolution, picking up arms, taking to the streets with cocktails and all those fun things and making a statement. A lot of people leave that out when it comes to Aquarian traits, but if you've ever known an Aquarian, you know they can be pretty rebellious. I point this out because a lot of people have had this notion that we are going to go smoothly into the age of Pluto in Aquarius for the next 20 years? And the short answer is no, it's not going to happen. You don't like it, not my problem. Learn some astrology. Rebellion is in the blood of the skies right now. And I think that's important. So with 2025, embrace your rebellious side. But here's the kicker. Are you rebelling against yourself or society at large? And of course, there's no right or wrong answer to this. I give this to you as a point to think about. Also, for the first and lasting all month, we have Pluto in Aquarius sextiling the north node of the moon retrograde in Aries. This underscores the idea that if you want new beginnings, sometimes you have to buck the system to make it happen. This also tells us if you want to transform, the best way to transform is through the transformative process. Also of note here is that it's saying if you want something different, you have to do something different. This reminds me of a quote I learned many years ago from a friend of mine who was in recovery. And it's something they talk about in recovery circles, which is if you want what I've got, you've got to do what I do. And that's kind of the message here with Pluto sextiling the North Node. If you want something, then you've got to do it. You've got to do it your own way. And more importantly, you got to listen to the voices of authority that know what the hell they're talking about. It's really that simple. A bad habit for people spiritually over the last few years has been thinking they know better than experts, when in reality, no, the experts 99.9999999% of the time know better than you. And I include myself on that list. People that are experts in a subject that I am not, they know better than me. And that's the beginning of the end of it. This is not flexible nor subjective. There's a reason experts are called experts. So, if you're looking for new ways to transform, consult the experts, then figure out how you want to do it. Don't throw their opinions out. Don't throw their wisdom out just because it conflicts with a deeply held belief that you have. Listen to them and change your mind. That's how we adapt and survive. Also on the first, we have that same moon conjunct Pluto in Aquarius opposing Mars retrograde in Leo. This tells us that you might find inner conflict is present that has to do with wanting to move ahead and doing what's best for all versus what's best for yourself. This also tells us that maybe you feel lazy and lethargic as January starts, and that is completely understandable. Pluto in Aquarius opposing Mars retrograde in Leo is going to be lasting the whole month. But we get a kick in the pants with it when the moon comes along and fires it off on the first. Also on the first, the Sun in Capricorn is sextiling Saturn in Pisces. That's going to be in effect until about the 8th or so. So the first whole week of 2025 is all about taking charge and applying what you've learned spiritually and emotionally to situations and figuring out how to go from there in the direction of bettering your life as a whole. That Mars retrograde in Leo is trining the North Node in Aries, which underscores what I just said about now is the time to review your energy, see where it's going, and figure out new ways to proceed. Saturn in Pisces is squaring Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. That particular aspect will be lasting all month. This tells us that finding an internal balance between expansion and contraction may be a challenge. On a more mundane level, it is telling us that if you spend too much time meditating, you might miss out on opportunities that you can get from talking to people. If you spend too much time in isolation, you might find that it brings up spiritual and emotional problems for you to deal with, and you are ill-equipped to deal with them because you have not made the right connections necessary that are conducive for your healing. On the second, the Aquarius stellium continues. And additionally, the moon in Aquarius is sextiling Chiron in Aries. When you sit back and emotionally detach from people, you might be able to identify your own wounds a little clearer. You might not be able to heal them, but you will at least know what they are. Also on the 2nd, that moon in Aquarius is trining Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. That tells us it is a good day to get out and talk to people, but keep the conversations conservative, keep them short, keep them shallow. Just because you are talking to someone and having a good conversation does not mean they're your friend. The phrase that I learned back in the 80s that summarizes this is smiling glad hands with hidden agendas. So watch out for that. That same moon in Aquarius is also sextiling Mercury in Sagittarius. This tells us it's a good time to speak your truth, but be emotionally detached to the reaction of others. So in other words, speak your truth, but don't care what they think. And on the 1st, Venus moves into Pisces. So it's all about love, gentle love, compassion, forgiveness, personal transformation. And I point that out, even though I've mentioned it several times in the first 2 days of the month, because oftentimes in this day and age, I have seen that everybody is looking for a perfect person. And newsflash, they don't exist. Everyone has skeletons. Everyone has a closet full of secrets. Nobody's perfect. So stop looking for the perfect solution and look for the best available solution. Oh, and did I mention forgiveness? Forgive others. If your favorite person has one blemish on their personality and you're going to hold that one blemish against their entire body of work, then you got problems. All of this is the message of Pluto, and it's the message of Venus entering into Pisces. On a non-romantic point, Venus in Pisces tells us your creativity may be increased, your ability to bring spiritual teachings down to practical results may be increased, but also watch out for people that are sensitive. And I don't mean emotionally sensitive, I mean sensitive to energy. Watch out for the emotionally sensitive too, especially empaths who can't control their shit. But this is all important to keep in mind because you never know who's going to react and in what way to what you have to say. On the 3rd, the moon is conjunct Venus in Pisces, so it might be too much of a good thing when it comes to emotions. You might also find that it's a day that you feel distorted. So in other words, you stub your toe and you think you broke your foot when in reality you just stubbed your toe. So make sure to see things clearly. And on the 3rd, that Aquarius stellium dissipates and is replaced with a stronger Pisces stellium. The 1st and the 2nd saw 3 planets in Aquarius, hence the Aquarius stellium, but now on the 3rd, there are 4 planets in Pisces. On one hand, this is a good day for spirit communication, clairvoyant development, ESP development, and psychic skills being honed to perfection. On the other hand, watch out for a lot of people crying over stuff they shouldn't be crying over. I don't really think I need to explain that. I think you get my point. Also on the 3rd, Mercury in Sagittarius is squaring Neptune in Pisces. That is going to be going on for several days. It's going to last until about the 8th or so. This dials it back on what I just said about speaking honestly and speaking your truth. The 3rd through the 8th is not a good time to do that, so get all those direct conversations out of the way on the 1st and the 2nd. On the 4th, the Pisces stellium continues, and now we see Saturn conjunct the moon there. Distorted spiritual fears may be coming to the surface. Distorted emotions may be flooding your consciousness. You may feel spiritually or emotionally restricted in some way. And if that's the case, the good news is this will dissipate in about a day or so. We also have the Sun in Capricorn squaring Chiron in Aries. That's going to be lasting for about 10 days till the 14th. And this tells us that in your push to move ahead with life, new year, new you, in that pursuit, you may have to face your own wounds. You may have to face your own limits. And it's not that you make the choice. Those wounds and those limits may be blatantly shoved in your face and you have no choice but to deal with them. So watch out for that during this 10-day stretch. Also on the 4th, that moon conjunct Saturn in Pisces is squaring Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. So avoid shallow conversations, avoid little conversations if you're not feeling emotionally up to them. Or have the shallow conversations, but put on a thicker skin. Not because anybody's going to attack you, but rather because the words they use may cause a problem with your emotions internally that causes you to fly off the handle. On the 5th, that Pisces stellium continues, and by the way, it continues until the 6th. But on the 5th itself, now we have the moon conjunct Neptune in Pisces, and both of those are squaring Mercury in Sagittarius. In short, this aspect is all about too much of a good thing. Moon conjunct Pisces means meditation will come easier, psychic messages from spirit will come easier, your creativity will be over the top. But you may not see things clearly, so that's problem number 1. If you're prone to depression and other mental problems, you can expect them to rear their heads on that day. And the fact that all of this is squaring Mercury and Sagittarius tells us you might not be able to find the words you need to communicate with others. Or maybe somebody's honest with you and you think that they hate you, when in reality they're just being direct. Also on the 5th, that moon in Pisces is conjunct the North Node retrograde in Aries. A good way to look at that is to take the 5th, pun intended, and let your intuition guide what you need to do spiritually and moving ahead for 2025. On the 6th, the Pisces stellium is still there. It's not as intense as it was the 4th and the 5th. But it's still going, and now we have an Aries stellium. For those of you that have been listening to these videos and watching them for a while now, you know that when you have a Pisces stellium and an Aries stellium, it's like having a foot in both worlds. You've got one foot in the past with Pisces and one foot in the future with Aries, so it may feel like a crossroads day on the 6th. One way to deal with this is to see that with the Aries stellium, it's all about being robust and moving forward. And the Pisces stellium brings up insecurities and second guessing yourself. And that's kind of the problem. If you're going to be bold and you're going to start new stuff, then start new stuff. Devil may care about the emotions. Devil may care about what you think. Just do it. Put the insecurities aside. Also on the 6th, we have the moon conjunct Chiron in Aries, informing us that your wounds, your shortcomings, your limitations will be painfully obvious to you. So then you have to work within the structure. Mars retrograde backs into Cancer on the 6th. So watch out for short temper with loved ones and family. Watch out for short temper when it comes to your home life. If you look around and you see that your private life is not where you want it to be, the 6th may be a day when you feel defeated because the Mars retrograde doesn't give you the normal energy it would to get through with the change. And that Mars retrograde in Cancer is trining Neptune in Pisces. That aspect will be going along until the 22nd. So you've got about 16 days of it, a little over a fortnight. And this aspect tells us it's a good time to find your religion. It's a good time to find your spirituality. And I don't mean doing a lot of research. I mean your practices. What do you do daily for it? Do you pray daily for it? Do you meditate for it daily? How are you living your spirituality in daily life? There's more to spirituality than just looking at fucking videos. I can give you the map with these videos, but the territory is your own life. So if you're one of those fake spiritual people that sit around and read and never do the work, well, the 6th is when it's really going to suck to be you. On the 7th, we've got the Aries stellium continuing. We've also got the moon in Aries trining Mercury in Sagittarius. So it's a good day to take a trip, get a fresh perspective on things, detach from what you've got going on in your life. And the Pisces stellium is still there as well. But just to clarify, that Pisces stellium is going to be present all month. So, buckle up. If you got problems with Pisces energy, this is not going to be a fun month. If you excel at Pisces energy, this could be a golden age. The 7th brings all of that, and that sets the stage for the 8th, the moon in Taurus, sextiling Saturn in Pisces. So we find that the 8th is a good day to say, okay, I know who I am spiritually. Where am I going personally? I know my soul. What about myself? Also on the 8th, we've got Mercury moving into Capricorn. So late on the 7th and early on the 8th, it might feel like a mini Mercury retrograde. It's not, but it might feel like it, particularly when it comes to your job and where you're going in life. Also on the 8th, we've got the moon in Taurus trining the sun in Capricorn, telling us it's a good day to review where you're going financially and professionally, and start implementing steps that can take you to where you want to go. On the 9th, we've got the moon conjunct Uranus retrograde in Taurus, so watch what you eat. When you're out and about living your daily life, be careful. The unexpected may come up if you are emotionally or psychologically distracted. We've also got that moon in Taurus sextiling Neptune in Pisces. This means it's a good day for a creative visualization board. It's a good day to work with binaural beats. It's a good day to actually work with spiritual tools that will have a change to your physiology and your psyche. Also on the 9th, that Uranus in retrograde is conjunct the moon in Taurus, like I just said, and all of that is sextiling Mars retrograde in Cancer. This aspect reminds me of something that I learned many years ago. It's just a perception that I see on memes on social media, which is that Buddha was not a Buddhist. Jesus the Christ was not a Christian. They were founders of religions, and the religions developed up around them. I point this out because on the 9th, it's a good time to say, well, what is my religion? How do I live my spirituality? Sitting around having spiritual conversations on social media exclusively is not living your spirituality. It's mental masturbation. How do you put it into practice? And if you can't find a religion, make your own. It's not for me to judge. It's for you to do. On the 10th, we've got Mercury in Capricorn sextiling Venus in Pisces. Let your intuition be your guide at work when it comes to communication, and you might find some unexpected money comes your way. The moon is conjunct Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, and both of those are squaring Saturn in Pisces. So it might be a day when you do nothing but chat with friends, and then at the end of the day, you realize all kinds of important stuff you didn't do because you didn't take the time to do it. Also on the 10th, the moon in Gemini is squaring Venus in Pisces. Don't let distractions get in the way of doing your creative work or your spiritual work or your psychic work. The moon in Gemini is also sextiling your Chiron in Aries, so you might find that through conversations with others, you have your own wounds thrown back in your face. On the 11th, the moon in Gemini is squaring Neptune in Pisces, so be careful with that. If you're too distracted on the 11th, you might pay the price for it. If you are in a meditative mindset, you might find that people just won't leave you alone to do your work. Easy solution. All devices have power buttons, and if they don't, they can be unplugged from a power source. That's how you end that. On the 12th, we've got the moon in Cancer trining Venus in Pisces. So we circle back to the themes of religion, spirituality, laying a foundation for how you are going to live your spirituality now and going forward. This is also a good time to have heart-to-heart communication with loved ones, whether they are romantic partners or close friends. The moon in Cancer on the 12th is opposing Mercury in Capricorn. So you might intuitively feel something, but you can't put it into words. Or maybe your profession is requiring you to communicate and your intuition is saying it's a waste of time. But go ahead and communicate anyway. On the 13th, the moon is conjunct Mars retrograde in Cancer, and both are trining Neptune in Pisces, and both are opposing Mercury in Capricorn. Ugh. Just that one aspect. So, I'm going to break it down, but not as minuscule as in previous days. First of all, on the 13th is the full moon. So take that into consideration. And I say that because you might find this full moon is actually pretty smooth. The only challenges that get brought up during this full moon are your own baggage. And that is the big point right there. With the moon conjunct Mercury retrograde in Cancer, it tells us you might be drawn to spending time with family and close loved ones. And the fact that that is trining Neptune in Pisces reveals to us that if you do that, you might have some good spiritual conversations or maybe some group meditation practices. But with all of that opposing Mercury in Capricorn, don't expect to be able to put what you experienced into words. In the workplace, this says that it may be a day of heavy communication in the workplace, but your emotions and your daydreaming are distracting. Now, the fact that all of that is sextile Uranus in Taurus tells us basically what I just said about communication, i.e., if you're distracted in emotions or spirituality, it could cause the unexpected to happen in daily life. And this could be negative or positive depending on other factors in your chart. On the 13th, the moon in Cancer is squaring Chiron in Aries as well. So you may want to spend a lot of time with family and close loved ones, but they might irritate your psychological wounds. Or maybe you irritate theirs. The only thing I can tell you for sure is that regardless, it's going to be unintentional and could lead to hurt feelings. On the 14th, the moon in Leo is trining the North Node retrograde in Aries. Ergo, it is a good day to figure out what is best for you and then to put into practice the steps necessary to achieve it. The moon in Leo is opposing Pluto in Aquarius. So if you spend a lot of time with society or engaged in the social scene, you might find that it trips your temper. Or perhaps your ego gets in the way of helping everyone. The same moon in Leo is sextiling Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, informing us that your good luck and your good fortune may come to you through talking to others, but it's not like a one and done. And what I mean by that is by talking to others, you may get led to what you need to do, but it might not be a clear-cut one direction. You might have to approach a subject from multiple angles. On the 15th, Mercury in Capricorn is sextiling Venus in Pisces. That's going to be lasting for 5 days from the 15th to the 20th. In short, the 15th through the 20th is a good time to put pen to paper, not fingers to keyboard, pen to paper, to put your spiritual ideas down. Why pen to paper and not the keyboard? Because studies over the last, 40 years or so have reminded us that when you actually physically write something down, it goes to your subconscious easier and clearer. When you type, it does not. That's the way the human body is wired. Will that wiring change in the next 40 to 50 years? Probably. But that's not now. We also have the moon in Leo trining Chiron in Aries. So by focusing on yourself, you put yourself in a position to heal your wounds. And Venus is conjunct Saturn in Pisces until about the 23rd. So you've got about 8 days of that. Whenever Saturn conjuncts a planet, it leads to constriction. So basically, Saturn puts the planet in a chokehold. With this on the 15th, it's saying that unrealistic fears in your romantic life may come to the surface. You may feel spiritually stunted. But that constriction is actually a benefit in the long run because it reminds you, hey, you're not limitless. You're not. We've all got limits. Most of them are physical, not psychological. But on the 15th, it's a good day to say, okay, I can't do that. What can I do? Okay, I can't do that or shouldn't do that. What do I do instead? All of those kind of thoughts are what you want to take into consideration on the 15th. And really that bleeds over to the 16th. And I point the 16th out because there's no real dominant aspects on the 16th. So you kind of get a breather. But then on the 17th, the moon in Virgo trines Mercury in Capricorn, telling us it's a good day to focus on work and health. The moon in Virgo is opposing that Venus-Saturn conjunction in Pisces. So you can use work as a distraction to get your mind off of emotional and spiritual issues. And also on the 17th, that moon in Virgo is squaring Jupiter retrograde in Pisces, saying enough of the small talk. Get to work. Stop water cooling chatting. Stop elevator pitches. And just get to work. On the 18th, that moon in Virgo is opposing Neptune in Pisces. If you daydream, it's really going to screw you over. If you're focused on work, don't expect a lot of spiritual growth and success. The moon in Virgo on that day is also trining Uranus retrograde in Taurus, which means there is a grand Earth trine present on the 18th. So it's a great day for manifestation, specifically through the workplace, but really just the physical world in general. That same moon in Virgo is sextiling the Mars retrograde in Cancer, informing us that the more you work, the better it makes your private life. Isn't that a deep reminder? Isn't that profound? And I'm going to leave it at that for you to think about how that would play out. On the 19th, we've got the sun moving into Aquarius. I've already talked about Aquarius energy, so I'm going to keep it light here and skip to the next aspect, which is the moon in Libra trining Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. I wanted to skip to that aspect because right there on the 19th, there are 4 planets in air signs, meaning the 19th is a good day for communication. The 19th is a good day for conversation. The 19th is a good day for inspiration. Don't expect to be grounded, even though you just had an Earth grand trine the day before. The Sun is conjunct Pluto on the 19th. That will be around for a week until the 26th. This is kind of a red flag aspect because it's saying on the 19th, watch out when you're dealing with society. Not everybody is going to have as cool of a head as you do. Or maybe you're dealing with people and you just can't deal with them today. Those are the kind of vibes that go with the Sun conjunct Pluto. And on a more mundane level, this can also mean violence. So watch out. And both of those, that Sun-Pluto conjunction, is sextiling the North Node retrograde in Aries. Hence, one of the ways you can handle the 19th is by not dealing with people, but rather figuring out how you are going to move forward. So you can see that earlier this month when I talked about moving forward, that was all foreshadowing and foreplay leading up to the 19th. On the 20th, the moon in Libra is opposing Chiron in Aries. So in your quest to be a diplomat or a peacemaker, it might open up your psychological wounds or the psychological wounds of others. The moon in Libra is squaring Mercury in Capricorn. In the workplace, this tells us that you might not be able to be the diplomat. You might not be able to be the mediator or the peacemaker. You might have to come down on one side of the fence or another and then live with the decision. And that moon in Libra is squaring Mars retrograde in Cancer, informing us that your family might impair your ability to get along with others. Or maybe you get along with others just fine on the 20th, but the same techniques you use to deal with others outside of the home, you cannot use with people in the home. The 21st, the moon moves into Scorpio and squares that Sun-Pluto conjunction. Watch out for short tempers, watch out for violence, watch out for accidents if you're not paying attention. So you can see how the 19th through the 21st here is really going to be an intense time, specifically with short tempers, rebellions, transformation. And the rebellion would be internal rebelling against yourself, or rebellion against society, or with society against a greater enemy, like healthcare corporations. And that's all I'll say about that. Viva la resistance. On the 22nd, we've got the moon in Scorpio trining Saturn in Pisces and trining Venus in Pisces. Hence, the 22nd is a good day to work with occultism. The 22nd is a good day to say, okay, I'm sharing too much of my information online. I need to dial it back and keep the important things to myself because there are way too many toxic vampires out there who leech off my energy. Another way to look at this is just simply the fourth power of the Sphinx, to conceal, moving in silence. Mars retrograde in Cancer on the 22nd is trining Neptune in Pisces. That's going to be going on for about 3 days until the 25th. If you've got psychological problems like depression, hopelessness, anxiety, paranoia, any of that, then the 22nd through the 25th is when they might be enhanced. And the way they'll be enhanced is by self-flagellation on your part. On the 23rd, we've got Mercury in Capricorn sextiling Neptune in Pisces. That will be lasting through the end of the month. And it tells us that in the workplace, you might be able to convince others of your vision through communication. Or perhaps it is the fact that you can bring down into writing the vision that you have for your life and for the company, depending on your employment status. The moon in Scorpio on the 23rd is sextiling Mercury in Capricorn as well. So when you speak in a workplace setting, speak passionately. If you believe in double meaning words, this would be a day to use them. And the 23rd, the moon in Scorpio is trining Neptune in Pisces. In short, this tells us once you're done with work, go home and meditate. Go home and do ritual magic. Go home and, put your spiritual work into practice. Do something for you. Don't do it in the workplace, but use the home life as an opportunity and a platform to reorient yourself. Also on the 23rd, the moon in Scorpio is opposing Uranus retrograde in Taurus. So here again, if you're too focused and too distracted, you may get into accidents or suffer other physical world problems. The moon in Scorpio is trining Mars retrograde in Cancer, which means that yes, we do have a water grand trine on the 23rd. So we've got a Pisces stellium and a water grand trine. So the 23rd is a day of strong emotions. It's also a day for a lot of good potential spiritual work, but only if you can master yourself and your emotions first. On the 24th, we have a mutable sign T-square, so it's a day of challenges. We've got the moon, Jupiter retrograde, and Saturn all wreaking havoc. But remember, if you've watched these videos before, you know that immutable T-square can be handled by personal transformation and resurrection. So see these challenges and overcome them, but see them as opportunities rather than problems. The problematic T-squares are more fixed sides. But these mutable ones, they're a little gentler. We've also got the moon in Sagittarius, sextiling the sun conjunct Pluto in Aquarius, informing us. The more you speak your truth, the more you are bringing about transformation in society. Now that same moon in Sagittarius is opposing Jupiter retrograde and Gemini, reminding us of what I just said a few seconds ago about the fourth power of the Sphinx. Conceal. Yes, you may want to share your ideas with others, but do not always or casually do it. This also tells us if you're going to take a trip or travel on the 24th, it's best to do it alone or with one other person. Journeying is a good thing to do on this day as well. And finally, that moon in Sagittarius is squaring Saturn in Pisces. And this tells us watch your words, but here's why. Watch your words because you might be made to eat them. Or maybe somebody quotes your own words back to you and you want to get angry at them, but you can't. Because it's your fault those exist in the first place. Don't you love it? On the 25th, we got the moon in Sagittarius still squaring Venus and Neptune in Pisces. Watch your honesty with others. It could hurt emotions without your intention. And that also means you might be more emotionally sensitive to what people say. This is not a good day to make decisions about your investments based on intuition because your judgment will be clouded. Also on the 25th, the moon in Sagittarius is trining Chiron in Aries, so it's a good time for some healing through journeying. It's a good time for healing through spirituality. It's a good day for journaling, as a matter of fact. On the 26th, we've got the moon in Capricorn squaring the North Node retrograde in Aries. In your desire to take charge, you might find that you have to put some spiritual work on the back burner and come back to it later. On the 27th, that moon in Capricorn is sextiling Saturn in Pisces. And once again, we have a day that is all about spirit saying to you, well, show me what you've learned. Show me what you got. The moon in Capricorn is also opposing Mars retrograde in Cancer, reminding us that the same approach you take with work may not be what's best when it comes to getting along with the family. The moon in Capricorn is also trining Uranus retrograde in Taurus. The more you take charge on the 27th, the more good unexpected things might come your way. The moon in Capricorn is squaring Chiron in Aries, and yes, that means we have a cardinal T-square on the 27th, full of challenges. But these challenges and growth opportunities mostly have to do with how much you trust spirit, how much you trust the invisible world that you claim to work with. Mercury moves into Aquarius on the 27th, so the evening of the 26th and the 27th might feel like a mini Mercury retrograde, and that means Mercury is conjunct Pluto. So your words may have devastating consequences for others because you didn't think before you spoke. Or perhaps you spoke out of anger, and then when you cooled off, you realized you were wrong, but you're not allowed to escape it that easily, so there might be a high price you pay. On the 28th, now we have an Aquarius stellium to go along with that Pisces stellium, and Mercury is still conjunct Pluto, and both of those are sextiling the North Node retrograde in Aries. In short, this tells us that when you communicate with others and with people, that is the best way to move forward. The moon in Capricorn is also sextiling Neptune in Pisces. So once again, in the workplace, share your vision of the future with others. On the 29th is the new moon, and we have Venus conjunct Neptune in Pisces. That'll be around until February 4th. So get to meditating, get to spirit contact, get to psychic development, get to spiritual development, get your creative juices flowing. They're going to be stronger than normal. The North Node retrograde backs into Pisces, where it is then conjunct Neptune. So now, this is best encapsulated in the idea, let go and let God. That is a good attitude for the new moon on the 29th. And Venus in Pisces is sextiling Uranus retrograde in Taurus, informing us that the more you work with the finer arts such as love and creativity, compassion and forgiveness, the more unexpected good things will happen. The 30th and the 31st have the Pisces stellium magnified. On the 30th, we have the Aquarius stellium. And on the 31st, we have Moon conjunct Saturn, and both are square Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. So the month ends with a lot of emphasis on emotions and spirituality, as well as working together with others, which a lot of people seem to forget these days. And because of that, I like to think that the month ends with a bang.